And now what I'm going to do is just show you a few of Greg Pizzoli's books. So this is, if I Googled him and I just searched in images, and here he is. And this is The Watermelon Seed, which is a book that got one of these stickers, so you know it's really good. And here's Crunch the Shy Dinosaur. This story is for you. This is a print that he did that actually is in our kitchen. And I think today he's going to talk a little bit about this book here, which is called Bologna and Friends, and it's a graphic novel. So I think he's going to talk a little bit about that. Let's see. Yes. What's up, Rishab?
So I've read Tricky Vic, The Quest for Z, and Bologna and Friends, and he autographed all those for us.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, you are obviously a fan then, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll get to see him again. Any other comments before I call him up here? Questions? All right, and feel free to work on your book while he's talking, because I'd love to see what you guys come up with.
Oh my gosh, hello. Can I hear these people? Hi. Where are you guys? How do I unmute all? Hello, let's all say hi to everybody. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Good.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna mute everyone for the video. All right, I think I just did that. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for letting me talk to you a little bit about making comics. My name is Greg Pizzoli. I think maybe your teacher Kay showed you some of my stuff, but just as a, oh, we're losing somebody, just as a refresher, I make mostly picture books. Like I made this book, The Watermelon Seed, and I made this book, The Book Hog. I made this book, Good Night Owl. Made a lot of different kinds of books. But lately what I've been working on, and kind of what I was working on downstairs while you guys were doing your class, because when you do make comics, you have to do it all of the time. I was working on my series Bologna and Friends. So Bologna and Friends is a graphic novel, AKA a comic. And this one is the first of 3 books that'll come out. Unless it gets really, really popular, then there might be more than 3. But right now I have a contract for 3. And you can see it's longer comics sometimes, but also like this page right here is a whole comic, just in and out, all on its own. So you don't have to make a comic that's like 96 pages like I did. You can just do one that's like 1 page too. And I thought before we like talk about me the whole time, I would show you some other comics that I like, that I thought you might like. And if anyone has a question, I don't use Zoom much, so I don't totally know, but I think there's a way for you to raise your hand. And, oh, maybe you just raise your hand, like your real hand? Oh, okay, just raise your hand, and I'll ask Kay to tell us how to figure it out, and we can take your question. All right. So the 3 books that I brought up to recommend for people who are interested in comics or like comics, number 1, you probably all know this. It's probably in your school library, even though you haven't been there in a while. Dog Man. Raise your hand if you know Dog Man. Everybody know Dog Man? Oh, almost everybody knows Dog Man. All right. Dog Man is so great, super funny, and I like how loose the drawings are, and you can just tell that Dave Pilkey has a lot of fun when he makes Dog Man. And also Dave Pilkey recommended my book on the front cover, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, another book that I like a lot is called Ariel. Might not have seen these. These were originally published in France, but they've been published in the US for a few years now. There's actually a cartoon show based on Ariel too. And they're really great. They're about a little donkey who goes to school. All the other people are animals. And they're really, really nicely drawn. and they're really funny too. And they were a big inspiration for me when I was making my own comics. So I would recommend the Ariel series. I think there's like 10 or 12 books in this series. And the last one that I'm going to recommend is a chapter book series called Dory Phantasmagory. This is the 4th book in the series. And when you're looking at it, you think like, oh, this is like a chapter book. And you might think it's like, you know, like a Roald Dahl story or something like that. But it's actually really, really heavily illustrated. And some sections of the illustration, I'll find an example, are drawn in comic form, like you can see here. So I think like sometimes, you know, as a creator, you think like, oh, maybe I want to do some comics, but I don't want the whole book to be comics. And I think Dory Phantasmagory is a great series. Abby Hanlon, who writes and illustrates it, I think is a genius. And yeah, I would recommend it. I think you guys should check it out. So I just want to talk. Does anybody have any questions at that point? Can we move on? I don't see any hands. Okay, they're all good. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I make comics and how I start and kind of how I just work in general. If I could have that copy of Bologna back, actually. So I work in a sketchbook. I assume everybody here has some form of a sketchbook, right? Like a sketchbook could just be sheets of loose paper. They don't actually need to be a real hardcover book. I am a super famous author, internationally known award winner, so I have really cool sketchbooks. Actually, I just got these at the local bookstore, and what I like about them is that they are half blank. One half is a blank sheet of paper, and one half is a lined sheet of paper on every spread. Every spread is like that. And because I like to write and draw at the same time, like sometimes I will come up with story ideas and make drawing ideas too. Like you can see, this is an idea for a future Bologna and Friends book. And I'll draw pictures on one side and write on the other side. So maybe if you want to make your own sketchbook or paste in some papers that are lined, I think it's good too. Because what I like to do is draw out or write out the idea for the comic first. So I'll like write out a general idea of the story. Like I want to do a story about a little pig and his friends. The idea can be that general. Doesn't really need to be much more specific than that. And I think one of the things that I like to do is to realize if you're making a comic, you're going to be drawing the characters a lot. You know, you're going to be drawing them over and over and over and over again. So sometimes when I make a standalone drawing and I'm just going to be drawing it once, I'll make the character really complicated and I'll have like, let's say it's a knight. I'll have really cool armor and a helmet with really, you know, detailed designs, and the hilt of the sword will be curved and it'll look really fancy. But if I were going to do a comic about that knight, I'd have to draw that stuff over and over and over and over again, and it would take me an eternity to do. So I think if you're coming up with a character for your comic, the trick is to keep it simple, because you know you're going to have to keep drawing it over and over and over and over again. One of the things I did with my book was I even showed how to draw the characters at the back. And it's like the first step here is draw a bean, right? It's not that hard to draw a bean over and over again. You know, you just draw a bean and put a snout and a smiley face on them, and you've got bologna. So I think if you're going to draw over and over again, just keep it simple. That would be my number one tip for how to design your character. The other thing I would say is make your characters, if there's going to be more than one, make them very distinctive. You know, make them very easy to tell each other apart, to tell them, how should I say that? Make them very distinctive. Unique. Make them unique, right? So what that means is like, Bologna is an orange pig and he's kind of round, and Peanut is a blue horse and she's got a long snout, and Biz is a bumblebee who's small and yellow. They each have their own color. They have their own different shapes. And I think that just makes it easy for the reader to quickly tell who's talking and what they're up to. And then what I do, so I have like my character that I've kind of designed, knowing that I'm gonna have to draw it a bunch. I have my basic idea. Usually I think the best ideas come from things that happen in your life, and you kind of like amplify them. You know, maybe you got in trouble for something and your parents like grounded you or sent you to your room or something. But what if you imagined that your parents, instead of grounding you and sending you to your room, they sent you to the moon? They put you in a space shuttle and they sent you to the moon. You know, that you could just take like a simple thing that has happened to you and make it much bigger by making it, by exaggerating what's happened, right? And what I do is I try to write the whole comic in sketch form. I will keep it, again, very, very simple and not worry too much about the drawings. That drawing part will come later. When we're like making the comic, when we're writing the story, we keep everything very, very simple. So I'm gonna show you a final comic from Bologna and Friends, and then I'm gonna show you how it started. Okay, so you'll see this like, oh, hold on, we have one question here. Before we show that, hold on, how do we? All right, what's your question there?
Can we do the magic trick?
I'm going to show you something from something else. All right, I'm going to show you, but I will show you the magic trick. I'll show you part of that too. I'll try to find the sketches of that too. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for knowing the name of it. All right. So this spread is from the first comic. It's kind of like an introduction. It tells you who all the characters are, and I'm just going to show you this. See, it says. It might be backwards for you guys, but, oh, it's not backwards for you? It says, oh, okay, let me start over. All right, so that's the final in the comic. That's what it ended up looking like, right? And in the sketch form, it looked more like this. Let me see if I can show it to you. See those pink boxes there? It says, okay then, let me start over. Okay. And you can see this is Bologna down here. This is how I draw them in the sketchbook. And that's Biz, and that's Crabbit, and there's Peanut. And I use different color markers to just kind of like quickly say like, this is what Bologna's gonna say, and this is what Peanut's gonna say. And I'm not really worried about what they look like. You know, they're just kind of very, very simple. But it helps me to what's called pacing. It helps me to pace out the comic to decide who should say what and when they should say it. Should they say, oh, okay, let me start over all in one box? Or should I separate it into 3 boxes so that he says, oh, okay, let me start over, as opposed to, oh, okay, let me start over, which is how you would read if it was in 1 box. You know, those little like panel breaks give you like a little pause, little breath. And I don't want to, when I'm in sketch form, to be drawing it out, you know, getting super complicated, getting the expressions just right when I'm just figuring it out. That can come later. I just want to figure out how I'm going to tell the story and pace it out in the sketch. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm going to get the hook here soon. I'm going to have to leave. But the next step, I take those very, very simple sketches and I read them aloud. And that's part of the editing process. You know, editing is when you review your work to make it better. And reading it aloud, I think, is the best way to edit a comic. Does it seem funny? Do you trip on the words as you're trying to read them? Is there an easier way to say it? Is there a shorter way to say it? You know, I think like editing is really the key to writing well. And I think a general rule, if I can leave you with one rule, is that if you're happy with your first attempt, you're probably not working hard enough. That's probably the rule. All right, so I sketched the whole thing, and then I approach the final art. And when I do the final art, again, it's more about like getting the expressions just right. And that's when I worry about like getting everything looking kind of proper way after I've sketched the whole thing out in this very simple way. All right, so I think we have time for any questions, but then your teacher Kay has a lot more to do with you, I think. So I'm just gonna see if there's any questions. Anybody want to raise their hand, ask a question? We all good? They're very disinterested in me. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for letting me talk at you, and I will see you later. And good luck with your comics, and I can't wait to see them when they're done. So maybe I'll return to see some of them or something. All right. Well, thank you very much. Bye.